Vox Day, voxday.net, unauthorized.tv. Welcome to the Darkstream. We have the unauthorized chat going. I'm told audio and video are good on D Live, and so we are ready to roll. So first of all, as I intimated several times on the blog with that little haiku in Japanese, and I actually came right out and said it on Social Galactic. But tonight I sent in the final draft and the first release candidate for A Sea of Skulls, the completed ebook. It's going to be, as soon as I get it, it's going to go out to all of the people who bought the Kindle version years ago. And we're also going to put it up on the Archaven store probably Monday timeframe. And, we kind of go with an iterative approach. Thank you, Anthony. He sends a congratulatory super chat. Fellow Traveler says it's been a while, but he's actually talking about his own Catching a Darkstream live. So, but anyhow, it's a big relief. To be honest, it feels like a weight off the shoulders for at least a brief period of time. The funny thing is it's actually had a negative impact. Not finishing it has had a negative impact on my writing anything else, because you always feel like you should be working on the epic fantasy. So, I first of all, thanks very much to the first readers. Not all of them actually managed to get through it, or even very far. But enough of them actually did get all the way through it to give me good typos, good continuity notes, good observations. Swedish Trash Man said, I thought terms like iterative was something only developers knew about. Then my mom mentioned she knew about agile project development from work in a school environment. Yeah, this is not agile. This is just... I don't believe in agile, but I do believe in iterative development. In fact, if you want to read a really good book about how iterative development can lead to excellence, I strongly recommend reading The WoW Diary by John Statz, I think his name is. I just read it. Fascinating book. Really incredible when you see what Blizzard did with a relatively small team. And really makes me wish that that I'd gotten in better with Alan Adam back when I knew him, when he was working for what was then called Silicon and Synapses. But c'est la vie. So this is what you're in for. It's actually not quite this size. It's actually a little bit bigger. It's about 2,000. It's about 2,000 words more than A Throne of Bones. It has a similar. I avoided what I believe to be George R.R. Martin's primary problem, which was introducing too many new perspective characters. One of the things that I did when I started A Throne of Bones is I actually mapped out a little spreadsheet. I like my spreadsheets, as you know. I mapped out a little spreadsheet seeing how many perspective characters he had. Because I thought, well, that should be a good model. I knew I wasn't going to do a book like Lord of the Rings. I wanted to do the proper proper epic fantasy, and Game of Thrones at the time, A Song of Ice and Fire at the time that I began writing A Throne of Bones was really kind of the the big example of epic fantasy, successful epic fantasy. And one thing I noticed very quickly, I mean, it was obvious, was that the number of his perspective characters just exploded with the third book. It kept growing every time. And I personally believe that is the main reason that he never finished the series. I don't think he's ever going to finish the series now just because I think he's aged out. But the reason he had the problem was that he let the story get too broad with too many perspective characters, too many people he had to follow, come up with a storyline for, etc., etc. So I think you'll be happy to know that I have been very, very strict with myself. There might actually be fewer perspective characters total, if you count like the crows and stuff. There's actually fewer perspective characters total in A Sea of Skulls than in The Throne of Bones. There's 58 separate, for lack of a better term, we'll call them chapters. They're not proper chapters. They're just perspective scenes, but there's 58 of them. And there's some, frankly, get a little bit of short shrift. There's probably 3 characters that I would have liked to have done more stories, go a little bit deeper, but you have to. My goal was to keep it pretty much the same length, same number of perspective characters, and be able to get it done. Now, of course, it's taken 10 years to get this done. Is it that bad? Let me see. When did I write A Throne of Bones? A Throne of Bones. Copyright 2014. Okay, it's not so bad. I mean, because it's kind of funny. A Throne of Bones was written in almost exactly 1 year. So 9 years for the 3 books of this size, or 9 years for 2 books of this size isn't too bad. 1 year for one and 8 years for the other, that's not so great. But we're gonna see if we can get closer to the original time frame for the 3rd book. I believe the 3rd book will bring the series to an end, but I can't be 100% certain of that. I'm pretty sure, but not 100% certain. So, when you look at what, on the one hand, when you're younger, you tend to think in terms of, oh, bigger is better, and just do it more and all that sort of thing. But as you get older, then you start seeing more and more of these series that are never finished. Then you think, no, I want to make sure that this thing gets finished properly. So, so that's why I think that limiting it to what will essentially be 3 big books and then the 1 introductory book is probably the best solution. And the thing is that because of the nature of the series, it's always possible to do additional Summa Helvetica type books outside of the big 3. Yeah, that's a possibility too. Pretty unlikely because there's other things I want to write. I'm well aware of the fact that I'm at what is conventionally your literary peak now. That's one of the reasons why I got the book done this year after 6 years of dilly-dallying or whatever it's been. And so you see authors age out. You see authors don't finish stuff like Robert Jordan. And I just don't want that. I want to make sure that the series are finished. That there's a reasonable arc and a reasonable conclusion. If that means it's a little less epic than it could theoretically have been, well, so be it. But I think that this is pretty epic. This is kind of interesting. I posted this a few months ago, maybe a few. What's interesting to me is that if you look at the total size of Arts of Dark and Light now, it's actually over 717,000 words. It'll be over 1 million words by the time it ends, which is roughly the size of the Harry Potter series. Swedish Trash Panda says, do you think Harry Potter was written by multiple writers? Possibly. I don't know, and I can't have an opinion on it because I haven't read enough Harry Potter. I read the first 3 Harry Potters and then stopped. I did not like them that much. J.K. Rowling is very good with characters. That's what makes her book so interesting, because you really get involved with the characters and are interested in what happens to the characters, pretty much regardless of what they do. What I didn't like about Rowling is that all of her plots and all of her structures were nonsensical. I mean, think about the is it the Goblet of Fire that was the competition one? I mean, there's a comedian who does a bit on it that's a really excellent literary analysis of what happens. And he says, think about how absurd it is that Harry Potter is in this competition with someone that he is probably envious of, more popular, better looking, etc., is actually a theoretical love rival of this guy, and then is found, he's found literally with the guy's body, and then blames the killing that nobody has seen any evidence of, and blames the murder on somebody who has disappeared and been dead for a decade, more than a decade. How is Harry Potter not arrested immediately? How is he not at least a serious suspect, right? And of course, you've probably read my analysis of Quidditch, which is the most retarded, absolutely most retarded take on sports ever. It's just so bad. And the fact that it was, popular and people actually read it with breathless excitement was just a very, very sad testimony to just how stupid most people are. Quidditch is basically the equivalent of a basketball game. Carnaby says it's even more retarded in real life. No, I bet you it isn't. I bet as retarded as it is for these, deeply disturbed individuals to be running around on broomsticks, I would be willing to bet that the rules actually are more viable than the fictional rules. When you look at the rules, I'll give you an exact analogy of what Quidditch is. Quidditch is a basketball game played with regular basketball points, and in addition to the basketball game going on, there's one person at each end of the court, one from each team, that is throwing a tennis ball at the far hoop. And if the tennis ball goes in, then the team scores 100 points and the game is immediately over. So think about that. Carnaby, I don't care. You can try to correct yourself, but I don't care how it looks. The point is, we're talking about the rules. I'm a game designer. I care about the rules. The rules are so retarded that the entire rest of the sport, the basketball game part of the sport, all the different positions, all the stuff going on, none of that matters, because unless one team is so much better than the other team that it's beating that team by 100 points, there's no possible way that anything they do can have anything to do with the end result. That's how bad it is. it's on the level of it's not even a competition. And so now I don't know what the rules of real world Quidditch is, but I'm betting that they didn't keep that part because it renders the whole thing pointless. So anyhow, did you like the movies? No. Not only did I not like the movies, I only saw the first one. And the worst thing about it is actually when you're sitting in the other room doing something while someone is watching a Harry Potter movie. Because only if you can hear the movie in the background, but you're not watching it or paying attention to it, can you understand how totally freaking annoying it is that all dialogue, practically every sentence spoken by anyone who isn't Harry Potter is Harry, 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 Harry. I mean, I don't know if anyone's ever bothered doing a word count on the number of times that someone says Harry in a Harry Potter movie, but it is just painfully repetitive. I don't think I've ever heard any movie that has one word repeated over and over and over again like that. I mean, even if you were to try to bring Groot into it, the only thing that Groot says is, I am Groot. And yet I think that Groot is probably said in those Guardians of the Galaxy movies less than 1/10 as much as Harry, Harry. The thing is, Harry, it's anyhow, I am not a Harry Potter fan in any way, shape, or form. And it's not because I envy J.K. Rowling her success. It's fine. You know, people buy books and music and stuff that I don't think much of all the time. It's not an issue for me. I'm not one of those authors. Why are they reading her books? Mine are so much better. I mean, yes, they are better, but that's exactly why I don't expect people to read them. They don't read Umberto Eco as much as they read a J.K. Rowling either. It's fine, you know. Harry, did you put your name in the goblet of fire? Harry, did you murder that older boy? No. You could actually write a really funny takeoff where Harry is the bad guy and Voldemort doesn't exist. You know. Harry, we just found you lying on top of the body of your dead love rival. Did you kill him, Harry? No, I would never. This guy who's dead whisked us away to a magic place and killed him and then sent us back. You're like, what? Somebody said, well, everybody trusts Harry. The police? The police who don't know him at all? The kid's an orphan. He's abused. You know, maybe he's locked in that cupboard by his relatives because he's a complete sociopath. You know, I just think that there's a lot of room for significant criticism of Harry Potter. Now, I'm not saying, Carnaby looked it up. In real life, you only get 30 points for catching the snitch, or sneetch, or whatever it's called. Yeah, they had to reduce the number of points because they actually figured, you know, even the retards running around in robes, in bathrobes on broomsticks, looked at the rules of Quidditch and said, you know what? yeah, we're going to look like the biggest dorks alive, and it's quite obvious that none of us are ever going to have any progeny because, there's no chance any woman will ever want to uh, come anywhere close to any of us. But the one thing that really needs to be changed to make this viable is we do need to reduce the number of points awarded by grabbing the snitch by 70 points. We need to reduce its value by 70%. That's the problem. Okay. Um, Swedish trash pandas clinging to it. He's famous, and Dumbledore knows about the Horcruxes. Look, the fact that the fact that one friend of yours, the fact that one teacher believes your story and can think of an alternative explanation, that's not how the police work. That's just not how the police works. And so, um, it's Swedish. You'd be surprised. The Harry Potter fandom has a lot of women in it. Yeah, so does the science fiction fandom. Uh, the the odds are good. The goods are odd. Actually, it's probably more like the goods are obese and haven't showered in a week. Um, I mean, the word fandom is all you need to know. Um, Anyhow, I did go, just so you know, I did go to one science fiction convention once. I was actually a guest. You know, was on a panel with they're actually like Steve Miller and his wife or something. They write some series that's been around forever, and um, it was kind of funny because uh, a friend of mine went with me, and we realized that this was not our scene at all because we thought it was going to be. We thought maybe, oh, we loved game designers, the game developers convention, GDC, or actually computer game developers convention, CGDC. We loved that, and so we thought, well, maybe it's kind of like that, only it's more people who read rather than develop. And then we realized that it was very, very different types of people. So, um, but I did get to meet the guy who wrote uh, Tom something or other. No, John Ford. I did get to meet him, and I did read one of his books afterwards. It was kind of a cyberpunk book that I enjoyed, and he had written some of the Traveler stuff that I like. So that was cool. But anyhow, so does anyone have any questions about A Sea of Skulls? Obviously, I'm not going to give anything away, um, but given that I did release the half complete version. Um, I know a number of you are reasonably familiar with it, so go ahead and fire away. I can say that I changed absolutely nothing about anything that appeared in that earlier ebook, the half complete one. Nothing has changed at all, with the exception of the fact that since I discovered that I had somehow inadvertently named both the Queen of Savandir, and the wife of Skullbreaker were both named Ingeborg. I thought that was needlessly confusing, so I changed the Dalarn, the Jarl's daughter's name. So, has your prose changed as you've aged? I'm sure it has. Sometimes when I read older stuff, it doesn't seem familiar to me. Um, I've been told that I'm a better writer now than I was, so I hope so. Um, but I mean, to be honest, I tend to feel like a worse writer. Like, I feel like my writing has gotten worse, but that might just be because it seems to get a little harder. seems to require a little bit more focus. But of course, you never know. That could just be because I have a lot more going on now. I have a lot more responsibilities. I have a lot more things that have to be done. There's when there's more people pinging at you and more things that you have to do, it's just harder to find the time to just spend 2-3 hours not talking to anyone, not answering any emails. Social media barely existed when I was writing. When I was, I mean, no, I guess it was around 2013, 2014. But it wasn't as distracting then, I don't think. Anyhow, I mean, to be honest, I don't think it's for me to say, Carnaby. I think that's for you guys to say. Swedish Trash Panda says, I feel like I was more creative in my teens. Now I struggle to improvise as much, and I'm not even 30 yet. Well, what I find, I do think that one is a lot less creative as one ages, because I don't think that anybody is as creative as they are. I think when from 18 to like 24, I think that's your peak creativity. Just in terms of being able to do stuff quickly. I can't believe how many songs Paul and Dan and I wrote and recorded in a relatively short period of time. I mean, we're talking like, 14 songs in 7 months or something like that. And it was effortless. That was like all we thought about, all we did. And, now it's hard to, even when we talk about things, when you get older, you spend all your time talking about what you should do and planning about it, and you just spend way less time just doing. I mean, Paul still writes great music. I mean, you've heard Summertime. He recorded that, a year and a half ago? It's a great song. But it's like the only thing he's done in like 25 years. He used to do something maybe not quite as polished, quite as good, but he would do something like that in 2 weeks. At most, maybe a week. So, is there a writer whose prose you admire so much that you would read their book even if it was only about Quidditch? Oh, 100%. I mean, you guys, I'm pretty sure some of you even know the answer. What author do I admire for the sake of her prose alone? And I will read and have read just about anything she's written, even though some of her stuff is just so terrible. I wish that the author had asked me for a basic idea for a story and then run with that. Anyhow, the answer, of course, yep, Craggy's got it. Tainith Lee. I absolutely love Tainith Lee's prose. Duodecimal Bear says, maybe it's the fact that you have much less going on that allows the young'uns to create that output. I think it's partly that, but it's also just partly energy. We had so much energy back then. It just seems impossible now. When we go to the gym, the Perfect Aryan Male and I would go to the gym and we would literally work out from 1 to 4. And we'd be working out hard the whole time. And then we'd hit the sauna and the steam and go to the bar and have a drink, and then we'd go out to dinner in the clubs, and it was just going. I mean, These days, you know, I don't think we'd survive the workout. We actually did a workout. He came over and we did a workout. It was a good workout, but it was like an hour, you know, and that was good. Um, but you know, it's just you know, it's just not as effortless. That's all. Now, some of it's easier. Like, um, you know, I mean, for example, even though it took me way longer, uh, I think that figuring out how things should go was easier in A Sea of Skulls. Um, I don't think you'll find, you know, so far at least, none of the first readers has pointed out even any, you know, mildly serious continuity errors. There's nothing like the infamous um, tunnel being dug that uh, I needed to sort of retroactively fix a bit, you know, give them a little bit more time, reduce the length a little bit just to make it even theoretically possible. Fencing Bear's here. How you doing, Fencing Bear? The professor says, this totally fits my experience of writing. Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, for me, what I find, the way that I managed to get this done and the process that I plan to incorporate in the new year is, you know, I have a word budget. It's not that big. It's like 1,000 words a day, and I just get it done. And you know, the blog doesn't count, social media doesn't count. Obviously, it's just pure writing on a book I intend to publish. Game design doesn't count. Nothing. And you know, so I'm working on uh, a couple things right now. I'm working on the SSH book, and I'm working on what will likely be my first quote unquote literary novel. It's very influenced by the Japanese styles. It's influenced by Murakami pretty heavily. And so that'll be interesting to see. But sure, Fencing Bear suggests that we do a stream together to talk about writing practice. Be happy to do that. I don't tend to like talking about it too much because, you know, I mean, that's what a lot of writers do, and frankly, they're really boring. You know, if you ever read the Mad Genius Club, which is like Sarah Hoyt and kind of the would-be Bane writers, that kind of thing, and you know, all they ever do is, you know, tell other writers what they do. I mean, to me, that just seems so pointless and borderline narcissistic. Reminds me of the banker who, if you said good morning and said how are you doing, he would give you a brief but reasonably detailed review of what he'd had for breakfast. You know. SG question: will there be a map of Selenoth available somewhere as a standalone item? What do you mean by a standalone item? Like just a map that you could buy or something? I mean, obviously we have, you know, there's a map of Selenoth, you know, in the books. Yeah, I do want to find a. Well, I mean, in fact, somebody's actually working on a game map of Selenoth, but that's for a specific project. I do think that it's probably a good idea to hire a good map maker and have him design one, like we did for Avalon City. But it's not a bad idea. Were you going to explain the weird Asian language haiku? It's not weird. It's just Japanese. Well, the literal translation, somebody posted that on Social Galactic, but of course, you can't just translate something literally. I haven't finished the final proper English translation because the proper English translation should have 7 syllables in the second line, but I haven't. But the basic translation is a novel delayed. The seasons passed, or the seasons have passed. At last completion. So, but if you notice, the Japanese version is actually a proper haiku with the proper number of syllables. So I was more focused on making sure that the Japanese one fit the syllables than the English translation did. So, Felis Concoller says, just like current composers and songwriters, audio rigs lead to Nacy Cartwright disillusionment. I have no idea what you're talking about. Joe says that was me. Yeah, what Joe? What was your translation? It was something like late book. The season is past, or the season passes. Japanese is difficult because they don't signal plurals in any way, so you have to, you read into it, and then finally done or something like that. Will you make any appendices like Lord of the Rings? Example given: dwarf lineage, higher spiritual warfare. I doubt it. The delayed main season has passed and it is finally completed. Let's see. I tried using Chat GPT to generate a fancy map. It kind of worked, but wasn't what I wanted. Yeah, I don't think that I'm not a graphics guy, so I don't think I'm not the right person to do something like that. Will A Sea of Skulls have a hardcover similar to the Marcher press editions of SE and A Throne of Bones? No, it's going to have a hardcover one, like the Castelli one. So since we're publishing it, so I vastly prefer this kind. Now, if enough people want a dust jacket version, we can certainly arrange to do it, but that wouldn't be the priority. There we go. Late book. The season has passed. Completed finally. It gets the point across, But if you're going to translate something, you need to put the intended color on it. I mean, generally speaking, only multilingual people can do perfect translations. Ocoretta hon. But even if you're totally fluent in both languages, you don't necessarily understand exactly what the flavor the original author wanted. I mean, there are really good translators. Umberto Eco's always had really good translators. A Finnish guy has translated Summa Helvetica and A Throne of Bones into Finnish. I think he's actually working on Sea of Skulls now. I think I should send him the Finnish thing. And there's also a German gentleman who is currently translating the short stories from Summa Helvetica. So we'll probably get that out in German and Finnish sometime in the new year. Personally, I'd love to get an Italian version out, but my Italian is not up to it. Especially Italian and French are really tough for writing because they have separate tenses that are only used for writing, and no matter how well you speak it, you don't necessarily know them. But so, but we'll get there. We'll get there. But I do think it's interesting if you look at so Lord of the Rings plus The Hobbit, and I think include the Silmarillion. No, it does not include the Silmarillion. But Lord of the Rings is 573,000 words. With the Silmarillion, it's around 700. Arts of Dark and Light is now at 717,000 and counting. Harry Potter is 1,080,000. I think that's where we're going to come in around when it's finished. Song of Ice and Fire, he's actually, for all that he gets a lot of flack, and rightly so, it's a very, very, he's written already 1.74, so 1.8 million words. Unfortunately, and this I think is the reason why it's a good idea to just finish it, is that's not going to be a satisfying read going forward. Tolkien will always be read and remembered. Lady Murasaki, even though she didn't completely finish it because it's not structured as a proper novel, right? But it's a complete story. It's an essentially complete story, and that's been around since what, 1100 AD. I like the idea that people will be able to, read these books, enjoy these books, long after I'm gone. And it'd be nice. Obviously they're not as good as Lord of the Rings or Tolkien. I think it'd be absurd to even compare it in any way. But people enjoy reading. They can't just reread the same series over and over again. If you like epic fantasy, you want other things to read, and hopefully, this will turn out to be one of the good ones that people will be able to enjoy. I still love The Dark is Rising. I still love The Chronicles of Prydain. Fantastic books. That being said, what I might want to do is write something that's more aimed at children, more in the sort of Chronicles of Narnia type thing. I really wanted John C. Wright to do that. I thought that he could take the setting for One Bright Star to Guide Them and go back and do that, but he just didn't want to. And but I really thought that could be the next great children's series. Unfortunately, it will probably never be written. And so the Harry Potter word count is significantly padded with Harry. It is funny to think, I wonder how many times Harry is mentioned in Harry Potter. Like, what percentage of the dialogue is Harry Potter? So here's a question I've got for you. This is a tangent, but it is related. It's just a tangent. Think about all the books you've ever bought. So think about all the books you've ever bought, not just for yourself, but for anyone else. I'm leaving parents out of it, but just if you're a parent, that's fine, but don't count like books that you bought for your kids. Just count books that you bought for you, or you gave to like friends or as gifts or whatever. So what percentage of the total word count of those books would you say that you have read? Like, of all these books, I would estimate that I have probably read, and I'm not just counting the books that we published behind me, I'm talking about all of them. I would estimate that I've read 20% of the total word count. Because when you read a book, sometimes you use it as reference. You don't like it. You don't read every book that you buy. So I'm just curious, what percentage would you think that you've read? Harry appears 16,557 times. And that's just in the Philosopher's Stone. I'm kidding. So, okay, so let's do this math. 16557 divided by 1084000. That's funny. Harry makes up 1.5% of the million-word Harry Potter series. That is funny. 1.5, Art Gaines is right, 1.5% of the total text. So that's a secret. Harry. Sir Hamster says 1 out of, yeah, okay. Way lower than 20%, more like 2% these days. Nick Sledge says 50%, 50%, 15 to 20% at most. Nebula says 3%. Ratman's a little cocky, he says 80%. I've read half a book from all my Castelia leather books, plus 2 if you count the ones I read in paperback. Yeah, they count. If you've read, yeah. Anyhow, I was just interested because I was thinking about another way of trying to calculate how many ebook sales, in talking to authors, trying to convince them how much revenue Amazon has destroyed. Because think about this. Conventionally, first of all, in addition to that, I've already showed you that the amount of ebooks the revenue that they get from a completely read Kindle book is half, less than half, what they got paid for a book sale. But now you multiply that by the fact that people don't read the entire book when they buy it. You're actually talking about around 90% of the revenue being destroyed. 90%. So if you're an author wondering why you've been struggling, that's why. Probably 90% of your ebook revenue was destroyed by Kindle Unlimited. Maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less, but that's the reality. So anyhow, that's why A Sea of Skulls is not going to be on Kindle. Don't want to support Amazon. It's only going to be on Archaven. So, anyhow, well, that's all I've got for tonight. Thanks for tuning in. When you do get the book, after you finish it, I would appreciate if you would put a review up on Amazon. That would be, the print books will be up there. We'll go through there as well as through Archaven. Of course, if you buy the print book, you will get the ebook with it. So thanks for tuning in. If you are a fan of Selenoth, thank you for your patience, and I hope you enjoy A Sea of Skulls in its complete form when you have the chance to get it next week. I'm Vox Day, and this is The Darkstream.